Hello, hello, and welcome to the Midday Show, or the midday, 1 minute past midday show today. What a morning, but welcome to the afternoon. Hopefully the afternoon will be a bit more chilled out. I'm going to have a good old chat with some really, really cool guests today. Cool guests doing very cool and interesting things that we like to chat about quite a lot on this show. All right, so we're touching on well-being, touching both human and animal today. So without further ado, I would like to get our first guest on. It's only Heather. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. What about you?
Really, really good, thank you. So I see your name is Heather Woodward here, but I had you in Facebook as Heather Thompson. Which are you?
Heather Thompson is me if you're referring to me personally. Heather Woodward is the business, so Heather Woodward Photography.
Heather Woodward it is. Okay, lovely to meet you. So tell us about your business, because I find this super interesting.
Yeah, so I am a dog photographer, but I didn't just stop there. I went a little bit deeper. So I actually work with anxious and reactive dogs specifically.
Yes.
So
And
dogs that have a little bit extra that they need.
Yeah. So how did you get from, it's obviously got an interest in photography, that's easy to answer, but then how did you get there for wanting to help them and presumably by extension helping the owners as well if they're a little bit out of control?
Yeah, so my background's in zoos and in animal training.
Oh, right.
But I've always done photography. So I did weddings and stuff at 16 and all that sort of thing. And I stopped for a bit while I was in the zoos, and then I saw a rescue dog, like a photographer doing rescue dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, you can actually do that. You can do that. So then I went back into photography and doing dogs. And then we have our OG rescue boy, who's called Marty, was a super anxious, super reactive rescue that we brought into our home.
When you say reactive, I think we all know what you mean by that, but can you just define reactive? What do you mean by that?
So an overreaction to any kind of like trigger or stimulus in the environment. So that could be a person, it could be another dog, it could be loud noises, it could be anything really. But it's that
I know many humans like that actually.
Yeah, I could name a few too.
Yeah, you do. I could give you a list of people I'd like to be dealt with. Anyway, you were saying, so a dog that reacts to anything and when there's nothing to, particularly that we know there's nothing to overreact for.
Yeah, or just something that we consider like normal. Right. So like for most dogs, seeing another dog isn't really an issue. It doesn't really make them feel anything either way, but reactive dogs either get super, super excited, or they might get really scared, or they just feel like they have to do something about that thing to either make it go away or to try and get closer to it. So so our eldest dog was very reactive, and it was at a time where there wasn't really the same level of kind of understanding or services or anything like that would support that. So we felt quite excluded and quite isolated, really, having him. So then I decided, because of my background, because of my training background, that I'm actually really perfectly placed to do that, like offer photography for people who maybe feel they could never, ever, ever have that because their dog's reactive or really anxious.
And how do you get round, if the dog's going to react to anything, you rocking up with a camera, I imagine would be a really big trigger. How do you get around? It's a wonderful blending of expertises, isn't it? It's literally.
I find it's so fun for me, because I can tailor something for each dog. So it's like, what does each dog need, rather than kind of just turning up and get the camera out and we'll just crack on. It's more like, what do we actually?
So are you one of these people with a bit of a magical gift? And feel free to boast here, or if you're too shy, I'll boast for you. You're a bit of an animal whisperer. You can work a magic with them.
Yeah, but I'm not the type that's like, oh, every dog will like me type. I'm just going to hang out and be furniture, and then the dogs are like, oh, okay, yeah, she's cool. I'll hang out with her. So I've had a few clients kind of be like, oh, they never normally actually solicit attention or approach people they don't know, or normally they shout at all the strangers that they meet, and they're just kind of like, but I think it's because I don't react back.
So you do have a bit of a magic. It's clear you obviously got a good vibe which relaxes them.
Yeah, I think the best compliment I've ever had was our dogs have a massage therapist. She's
Right.
amazing. And she told me that I have a really still vibration.
A still vibration.
So, yeah.
Oh, so the word
So,
vibration. So we're bringing that into it, because I know someone that does Reiki for dogs, and apparently dogs have chakras. If you've heard of the chakra system, yeah, I'm sure you have. And apparently she goes to all the. I didn't know dogs had chakras, but apparently they do. And she goes to all the. So she's probably got a bit of the magic as well. Are you busy at the moment? You got lots of work on.
in terms of client work, summer is usually mad.
Right.
But I always have extra space for anxious and reactive dogs, because obviously we could turn up and they could just be having an off day. So I make
Yeah.
sure I have like buffer time so they can reschedule, or we can
Yeah.
take longer. And but yeah, the sun comes out and then everyone's like, yeah, want a picture taken.
Yeah.
Even though the bright sun is sometimes not the best.
No. So what are the ideal
Oh.
conditions to get the best pictures from your photography point of view?
Ideal conditions for me, golden hour. So just the couple of hours straight after sunrise, a couple of hours just before sunset.
Right.
Or if we're earlier in the day, kind of slightly cloudy, so not really heavy, ominous clouds, but like a little bit of cloud cover, so that everyone's not squinting and getting
So
overheated while we're
cloud
trying to take
cover,
pictures.
but bright, bit like today.
Yeah, today would be good.
Yeah, relatively bright, but not. I know what you mean. There's that real grim. I mean, I just want
Super
to curl
harsh
up under my.
shadows.
No, I know. I just want to curl up under my duvet when it's like that. but I could deal with days like today. What? How absolutely fascinating! You must have some really good stories. You must have made new friends. It's really it's an interesting path, isn't it? What's it been like for you, this whole journey into doing this?
So I
So
have
unique.
an ambassador team. So I have there's 4 families, and all of their dogs are either anxious or reactive in some way. But it's more like being, a lot of my clients, it's more like being friends. I think because I find out so much about the dog, and then we have so much that we share because of my dogs being reactive
Yeah,
previously. And for my
it
younger one
sounds.
currently, that we kind of like I have clients that could come back. I have clients that I now go and do like dog stuff with. I have clients that I just hang out with. Like it's really, really lovely. Really
It
lovely.
sounds like it's more nuanced than I knew. I mean, I don't know if you might be too young, but I remember Barbara Woodhouse. Do you remember her? Barbara Woodhouse? You have to be of a certain age, but if you look her up, she was the famous dog trainer of the time when I was growing up. But you're considerably younger than me, so. And she was like very almost like a strict nanny. If you've seen the strict nanny programs, but a strict nanny
Yes,
for dogs. She
yes.
had this movement. She goes sit like that, and that was her movement. Sit like that, and even comedians of the day were making songs, playing the piano and doing parody songs with this sit movement. But it really was just that. This seems like a lot more nuanced than that, because you said you felt excluded, that there wasn't anyone really to deal with reactive dogs. Is that still the case very much, or is that changing, that there's more
It is.
understanding now of how to deal with this kind of behavior?
It is changing, definitely. There's more, especially I think because we've had a lot of things like lockdown, for example. A lot of dogs really struggled with that, especially people who got new puppies, because they couldn't really experience or see much of the world around them.
Yeah.
And then they were introduced to it later once they're a bit older. And then they're like, oh, what's that? What's that? Oh my God, what's that thing? Scary, can't cope.
So essentially, it
So
would
it's like
affect their
that. So there is a
development.
lot
I mean,
more. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it affected human
But
development, certainly for the lockdown babies,
yeah,
didn't it? So, but why
yeah.
wouldn't
And
it? Why wouldn't it happen for dogs as well? That makes sense. Yeah, go on.
yeah, and they it's like when we first got our dog, it was very hard to, like, people didn't really understand. So, if if I moved away from someone, or I asked someone to either maybe put their dog back on the lead, or
Yeah,
to kind of give us a bit of a wide berth, people didn't really get it. And some of the service providers also didn't get it. Like if you've got a dog that's a bit sensitive to being touched and things. And some vets as well, whereas now there's a lot more vets that lead from that kind of like holistic approach of how do we approach a consult for each dog and how do we do this, whereas I felt like our dog couldn't go anywhere with us,
it's a
really.
lot more
Not
bespoke, and
because of him, but because of
it's
other
go on.
people.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
it's a lot more nuanced. It's essentially a bedside manner, isn't it? Some doctors you really warm to, and some brilliant scientists and physicians that they are. you're just left cold. It's like, oh my God, I wouldn't put it that way. You know what I mean? Yeah. But then you meet the Patch Adamses of this world, and the wonderful ones, and it sort of makes it all restores your faith in human nature a bit. Are there any breeds that go on?
Oh, were you going to say any breeds that I tend to see more of?
Yes. From what I know about dogs, it's the little ones that tend to be more yappy. Well, they would be because they've got a smaller voice box, but you know what I mean. They tend to be more vocal, I should say. Generally speaking, I would say the big dogs, this is very generalised, are perhaps more placid, more patient, but this is a very limited view. What do you know that I don't?
I see a lot of like shepherd types and herding breeds, and
right.
they are or originally were bred to work very strongly with a single handler.
Such as like collies.
So like collies are a little bit more independent, but obviously because they're bred to herd, anything that moves quite fast or moves in that particular way, they might find that a little bit too stimulating, and they could become reactive to things like cars passing and try and lunge out at cars or herd cars. Shepherds like your Belgians, which is what I have a Belgian Malinois. They are quite handler focused. Like, we've bred them to be really handler focused, so they can sometimes struggle a little bit with strangers. So if they don't get the right kind of approach or training when they're a bit younger, and as they age, they can find that can become something they react to, or maybe they're more prone to maybe a bad experience sticking with them because they're bred to work so closely with a single person that a negative experience with someone else.
That's interesting, because what I tend to notice the difference between humans and most of the animal kingdom, this is an interesting question actually, is that if, I don't know, let's say put your website on the screen, by the way, for anyone wants to look up this lovely lady. Really interesting, great website, by the way, as well. But in the animal kingdom, it tends to be, let's say the gazelle gets chased by the tiger or something like that and gets away. They do that vigorous shaking, which I understand is the stress release, and then they forget about it. Humans, however, will be traumatized and will need months of therapy. So do dogs hold trauma and in the mind, body, spirit kind of language, hold trauma in their body, issues in their tissues, to use that awful phrase? Do they hold trauma?
So that it's not my remit. My remit's more in training, but from who our dogs see, so their massage therapist, she would definitely say that yes, they do hang on to that sort of thing, particularly physical injury as well. So even if they're recovered from a physical injury, but it's from a training perspective, it's the association. So they've associated that person or being touched in that way, or that sound happening, or that thing happening, with a potentially negative outcome. So like fear or shock or startle.
It's the same as humans. It's a negative, to use NLP terms, it's a negative anchor. But with neurolinguistic programming, there's a process called collapse and anchor, where you can essentially rewire the association, rewire how that experience is coded. They call it neurocoding. And I suppose that exists for dogs to some degree.
Yeah, so you can.
But I wonder how, because they don't understand English. So how does that work?
Yeah, but dogs, we've also bred them to understand our gaze and how we point. So they understand a lot more than I think we give them credit for sometimes. But they can associate that sound or that hand signal or that phrase with a certain behavior or a certain outcome. So you can do something really basic along the lines of, like, this is Pavlov going back.
Oh, good old Pavlov ringing his bell.
Yeah. So you can do something called classical conditioning, where you recondition the emotional response to the stimulus. So you introduce something more positive at a distance that they can cope with.
And if the positive
and then you can layer that
with go on.
Yeah, so you'd associate that with the thing that's maybe a bit scary. So say, for example, one of my dogs was terrified of the wheelie bin, because it had made a loud noise or fallen over once. We could start at just the presence of the bin and just do a little bit of conditioning, and then maybe build them up to layer in more complex training on top, where we're getting them to either interact with or respond in a certain way to that stimulus. So first of all, we get them to a point where they're not terrified, and then we can also teach them what the appropriate responses if they feel they're a bit worried.
That sounds quite similar in a way to humans. I think that what you're talking about is they would call it systematic desensitization, which I think is how a phobia would originally be cured in a human. Like, first of all, you see a picture of a spider, and then a real spider, then maybe touch a spider. But that would take 6 months. But since sort of NLP, a phobia can be cured within minutes. And I noticed with what you're saying, there's a bit more of kind of that in there as well. When there's a positive stimulus, which is has got a bigger, shall we say, energetic charge than the negative one. And if you're doing signals and it would trigger them to the positive signal, it will kind of override and cancel out the negative one. Am I right? Kind of?
Yeah, it kind of helps them build upon that and change their perspective almost on it. But it can also be for things they find too exciting as well. So
that's interesting. So so there is such a thing as too much positive stimulation.
Not so much positive, but just things that are arousing for a dog. So things that are exciting. So maybe maybe when they're young, they got to meet every single dog they saw and they got to play and it was amazing and it's the best time ever. And then once they grow up a little bit, we're asking them not to. And then they can get quite excited because they've seen a dog that they're like, oh, we see dogs, we play with dogs. And then they're not allowed to do that because, oh no, now we're a bit older, we need to walk nicely or we need to do this. And then they can get frustrated. So it can kind of tip the opposite way. So you can have reactivity and kind of responses that are out of like a place of fear or uncertainty, and then also out of excitement or over arousal for whatever the thing they're seeing is.
Do you think a dog, no matter how old it gets, needs to let its hair down from time to time and just play like a child again, like we all do? I remember taking my very old dog to the park, and then suddenly he would just run at night round the park. I'm there with the can of Fosters, and he's just running, doing laps of the park. And he never normally done them when we're out on a walk. He'd just walk along beside me. He was very loyal. But 4 laps, he comes back and he's had the time of his life. I think they need to let their hair down from time to time.
I think play is really, really important.
For humans,
whether that's playing, and for a dog and a human together, that play together, like that's constructive play, where it's like we can do fun things together, is really important, not just for them to be able to kind of do some of their natural behaviors, but also for the relationship. Because then if you then ask them to enter a slightly scary situation, so like
because of the level of trust and the bond they've got with you, they will trust you. And they do it on your command because of that bond of trust, right?
They'll kind of have a higher association of good things with you. So then they're less likely to kind of overreact in some situations because they're like, oh no, we tend to have a good time. So then they're a bit more like, really? Okay, when I'm hanging out with you, everything's actually okay. And it does help a little bit for them. But play is super important and fun.
I mean, there's whole books written on the importance of play for adults, for everything from problem solving to doing business deals. I heard of a guy that used to have his business meetings over the park with a Frisbee, and he did really well. And it's, so play and fun is important for all the kingdoms, human and canine, and probably all the others as well. It's a fascinating world that you're in. I really do. It's what a wonderful and unique thing to do. And I love the way you've blended all your interests and come out with this incredible hybrid of all these wonderful things. You must love it. You must.
Yes, I really love it. And I love it. I get really emotionally invested in my client dogs. So then if later, say if they're on social media and then see that they've had a success or they've done this or they've done that or they've achieved this, it makes me feel really good as well, like to have been a little bit of a part of their journey together. So,
have you ever had a really tough case that you cracked that the owner, like you see on telly, the owner thought it was impossible, they'd have to get rid of it, and you came in and cracked it? You ever one of those?
Not from a training perspective recently, but from a photography perspective, where they felt like, oh, we'd never be able to do this thing because our dog would probably like to tell a person to go away quite physically and quite intensely. I've had quite a few clients who are like, we wouldn't even dare have tried. And they were actually nominated by someone else because I run a nomination scheme as well. So you can nominate someone else who has an anxious or reactive dog for like a mini session. And they were like, we never would have tried this. And he would really kick off at strangers, and we had a whale of a time. It was just a breeze. He was such a good boy.
Such a good boy. I love it. So where can people learn more about this amazing work that you do? It's a website, obviously. Any other places you can be contacted? All the socials,
so I'm on
and
Instagram.
Links? Yeah.
And I am on Facebook, but everything tends to be more on Instagram first. So it's Heather Woodward Photo, all one word.
Yeah.
As the handle. So yeah, that's mainly where I am.
That's brilliant. It's been lovely to talk to you. Thank you for being a guest today, and what a fascinating conversation. And if people want to get in touch, they can send you an email, have a look at your website, see what your offerings are, and I'm sure you'll be able to help them. It must help so many people. So lovely to meet you, Heather.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been wonderful.
Whereabouts are you based? You in London?
So I live in South Yorkshire, but I cover all of the UK.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Lovely to meet you. What I'll do, if you like, I'll send you the footage of this a little bit later.
That'd be wonderful.
And if you want to use it for any marketing purposes at all, you'd be very, very welcome. Just slice and dice it and do as you will with it. Lovely talking to you. Oh, we've got some comments in. Let's just see what our listeners are saying. They might want to ask you a question. Here we go. John, I had a border collie, but likes to chase moving cars and wiper blades on the car. Well, that would be overstimulation again, wouldn't it?
Some of that need to herd. Yeah.
Yeah, herding wiper blades. That's dog's logic. I've been to safari parks and had baboons jump on the car, or monkeys rather, and start peeling them like bananas, peeling the windscreen wipers. And the owners are going mad. Stop them, the drivers, stop that. Yeah. What's Philip saying? I saw a TV police chase where a stolen car crashed, which had the owner's dog in the car. The dog survived major physical injury that was so traumatized that it hid behind furniture and eventually gave up completely. That's really sad. Aww. So obviously they do hold trauma. Yeah. To answer our earlier question. Okay, well, lovely, Heather, lovely talking to you. And I shall send you the footage of this later, and I hope our paths cross again at some point. All the best.
Yeah, thank you very much. Have a lovely day.
Yeah, you too. Lovely talking to you. It was a good first guest, wasn't it? heatherwoodward.co.uk. Can go and check her out. Check out what her offerings are. I love that because we talk about well-being and success quite a lot on the show as well. And, to be able to blend all your interests into one thing and then have a great and completely unique and useful service for the world. Who can argue with that? As this lady does. Hello.
Hello, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Jenny, nice to meet you. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be able to come on and chat with you. I can't think of a better thing to do of a Wednesday lunchtime.
Oh, you say the nicest things. And I detect that northern warmth in your accent. Where are you from?
So originally Glasgow area, but currently in the Berkshire area, so quite a bit further south.
Oh, Berkshire?
Yeah. I'm down near Reading.
I know exactly where Berkshire is because my daughter lives very near there. So yes, I know it well. Very, very nice part of town. First of all, let's get your website on the screen. What's your website? Is it?
So it's exactly in my username. So it's audistically.me. www.audistically.me. Try saying that with your teeth in.
Audistically. I do all my own production here. No, I press caps lock. I hate it when that happens. O-U-D-H. Hold on, how embarrassing. I'm going to split the word. distically.me. There we go. So I'm going to add that. I'm going to save that and pop that on the screen for the time. Is that all right?
That's perfect. Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. For the time that we chat. That'll be up there. So tell us about you and what you do, because I did suffer from burnout a while ago.
Yeah.
And I know you deal with that to some degree. And this is coming up quite a lot in conversations recently. It's more accepted now. First of all, it wasn't a thing. It was probably just people being lazy, or so they thought, nonsense.
Yeah.
And then it was accepted as a thing, but people didn't really understand it. And it seems that the drive between, certainly people that live in the Western world is go, 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 on, always on.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I've had that drive before, and I'll be honest, I enjoyed it when it was good.
Yes.
But slowly but surely, the enthusiasm started to wane. I was on autopilot, going through the motions, which I've come to understand is the first stage of burnout or compassion fatigue, or whatever we want to talk about. Until it was like, nothing behind the eyes, burnout. I don't want to get out of bed. So over to you. The forum is yours.
So I'm coming at burnout from a neurodiversity perspective. I didn't realise until I was 37, I believe it was, when I got a diagnosis of ADHD, first of all. And then later that year, also got a diagnosis of autism, and had lived my whole life no idea that I was neurodiverse in any way.
Did you think there was something wrong with you that you couldn't quite put your finger on?
Yes.
Or were other people saying things to you? And that must be quite lonely, I suppose. You know, what's wrong with me? You know.
Yeah.
When the answer is nothing, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just a condition, you know.
Absolutely. And I, up until quite recently, I was a secondary school teacher. And that was my career. I was a secondary school teacher for 16 years. Yeah. And like so many people during the pandemic, when we went into the first lockdown, and I was teaching online, I was teaching from home, but I was actually able to create a little bit of a work-life balance. Mm-hmm. Suddenly, I had this sort of epiphany of, wait a minute, there's another way to live, actually. Isn't it nice to be able to be at home? Because I've got 2 young kids, or they were certainly young at the time. It was nice to be able to spend some time with them, to be able to do things around the house, to be able to. I think
it took a planetary lockdown for many people to realise that.
Yeah.
For that epiphany moment. If there were, I mean, it was a terrible time, but there were good things that came out of it, and that is probably one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so many people sort of suddenly had time, and they went, "Oh, I quite like this. I've got time." And you know, some people also, if they had been furloughed, there was a little bit of time and a little bit of extra money, and it was like, this could life be like this all the time? How do I get more of this? Yeah. And so that was a sort of first breakthrough moment in terms of, I could live my life in a different way, because teaching in secondary schools is an incredibly full-on job. You're never just a teacher, you're a social worker, you're a pseudo parent, you're doing absolutely
surrogate parent, counsellor, best friend,
so many roles and hats that you're wearing in that job. And it was actually after we came out of the first lockdown, I started a new full-time job in the September of 2020. And we were dealing with bubbles, and we couldn't have crossover. We had kids that were going home, whole class groups that were getting closed. We had all sorts of absolutely unbelievable rules that we had to try and follow in school to keep people separate and keep lessons going on as normal. And sort of during the course of that time, by probably the Christmas term, I think, of 2020, I just stopped caring about my job. And when we came back after Christmas, and we were in that weird period of like secondary schools are in lockdown and primary schools are, but they aren't, and there was like 1,000 different conflicting rules going on, which I found
that second lockdown was weird, and I didn't understand at the time why they kept the schools open. I don't know if it was different where you were at the time, but around here in London, it was the same, wasn't it? Of course it was. Yeah, the schools and universities were open, but schools were breeding grounds for places like that.
Yeah.
And I thought, of all the places, you'd probably be safer keeping the pub open than schools.
Exactly. It was the real contradictory nature of, like,
wasn't it? Yeah,
you can't meet up in groups of more than 6 outside in the world. You can't see your family, but it's okay to send everybody into school and be in groups of 30. But siblings can't be together at school, but they can walk home together and live it. And it was just like, it was wild. The contradictions were wild. And sort of as we went through that, the spring term where schools were closed, they were open, we were open to bubbles and groups and key workers, but everybody was a key worker. It was madly confusing. During that time, I found myself, like you say, almost that dead behind the eyes sensation. And the biggest trigger for me was I just didn't care anymore. I'd open my emails and I'd be like, I'm not interested in solving any of these issues.
That's exactly what it was like for me. Yeah. Exactly what it was like for me. It's almost a relief to have this conversation, because you think you're the only one. With any mental thing, you think you're the only one, don't you?
Absolutely.
And that's not be further from the truth. But for me, I was on this computer down the local. This is before lockdown. Doing a bit of editing. So notice I was blending work and social time. You know what I mean? Which was annoying to my friends and exhausting for me. And I was just editing a piece of audio, which I've done 1 million times over the last millions. And I just stared at this green line on the screen. I thought, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I just can't do it. I know I can. I know how to do it. Yeah. I just can't. I've got that. And this real sort of heavy, drained feeling in my body.
Yes.
And a bit dead behind very dead behind the eyes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it was a kind of horrifying realization where I was like, I don't understand why I feel like this, and I don't know how not to feel like this.
That
oh my
was the
God,
frightening
what do I
thing, because I
do?
knew I had to keep working, but I knew I
Yeah.
couldn't carry on doing it the way I've been doing it. But at that point, I didn't know another way. Plus, there was lockdown and all that confusion. So it was that was did my head in for a bit. I must be honest, but we can find our way back. Please tell us how you did.
Absolutely. So I actually ended up hitting what I call the big red button, and I ended up speaking to my GP, and it was her that said, "Have you ever heard of burnout?" And I was like, "Not really." And at that time, I didn't realize actually it was in autistic burnout, which is slightly different. But yeah, she said, "You're in burnout. I'm going to sign you off." And I ended up having a period of 12 weeks off in total, which as a teacher is really horrifying, because all you can do is think about how much work you're giving your colleagues and who's going to cover my classes and who's going to, do all the things that I would normally do.
Did you? Did you feel any kind of shame for taking that time off?
It took a long time to actually make the call and say, "There's something wrong. I need to speak to somebody about this."
Because I did. My inner critic. Well, the inner critic is the worst of the lot when you're not feeling the best mentally. That's when it's you're weakest and it can get to you. But it was saying things to me like, "You've been in the work world since you're 16 years old. What is wrong with you?"
Yes.
Which I have, and you're letting this, And I actually felt. I had to also do some work. I think, no, this is nothing to be ashamed of. This is about my well-being. And frankly, in a critic, you can go and stick it where the sun doesn't shine.
Yes. And in terms of being in employment like that as well, you have that kind of the stigma that comes with it. Like, oh, well, if I apply for another job, they're going to see a period of absence on my medical history. I'm going to have to explain that, and that's going to make me less attractive as a candidate. And you have all these
mental health issues, big stigma, which is getting better now. But there has been certainly. Oh yeah.
Absolutely. So you've kind of got all of that on your shoulder, and I did get to the point where I was like, I'm going to have to just deal with whatever comes, because I cannot carry on doing this. So you do have all that running through the back of your mind, and if I'm one less body in the room, somebody's having to teach my classes and plan the lessons and do all the bits and pieces that are going around it. So taking some time out was actually the best thing that I could have done for myself. And I actually got involved with a teaching charity, which I can't remember the name of off the top of my head now, which is really annoying. And they provided the education support charity. That's who they are. And for teaching staff and school staff, they actually provide free counselling, phone counselling for anyone that's in sort of distress through the workplace. So I in 6 sessions with a lovely lady there, and she sort of helped me dig myself out of that hole a little bit. But what I found really interesting, and I wonder if this would resonate with you, was in the initial call, they were sort of going through, take this time to rest and do the things that you enjoy. And they were like, give me a list of like 5 things that you do to relax, or 5 hobbies and activities that you do that bring you joy. I laughed down the phone, and then was like, there was an awkward silence, and I was like, "Oh, you're serious?"
What do I do to relax? I go down the pub and do my work.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and it was that kind of, and it was that realization, I think, and having that conversation of, this is not you. This is not normal to not know what I enjoy and to not know how to relax. That is really, really. I need to do something about this. I need to look into this. And so that sort of started me down a path of almost like self-discovery, because I was like, other people know how to have fun, know how to relax and enjoy themselves.
Yeah, what do they know that I don't?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And how do they know what's fun? So it's kind of a journey of self-discovery from that perspective, to find out what it was that I did that I could enjoy, to enjoy my free time. Because like you say, you do end up taking your laptop to the pub, or after dinner sitting with the kids for, I'm just going to do a quick little bit of planning or whatever, and it just creeps into the rest of your life, and before you know it, work is everywhere. You've got your emails on your phone.
You have no time for yourself at all.
Exactly.
And I know people close to me that are like this. And then if you say, "Oh, relax," it's about, you might as well say to someone with a broken leg, run a marathon. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you really know there must be a better way for these people that we're close to. So conversations like this are really important. Karen says, "I'm a fellow ADHD here." Hello, Karen. Welcome.
Hi, Karen. Lovely to see you. And I'm going to pick up on that. Karen said she's an ADHD, which is amazing, which means she has the combined autism and ADHD, which is a growing area of diagnosis, I suppose. Until 2013, you couldn't be diagnosed with both autism and ADHD in the same brain. So there's a growing number of us out there who have actually discovered that we have a dual diagnosis, which is really fun. Really fun.
So how do you manage? I say manage because I don't want to use the phrase there's something wrong because just because something will fit into societal norms doesn't mean it's wrong. I do stand-up comedy. I know many autistic comedians.
Yeah, it's quite common.
And some of them are absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. We see the pictures. We've all seen Rain Man, probably.
Yeah.
And we've seen there was an autistic chap. He'd taken a flight along the River Thames, like a low flight, and wasn't filming it. He was just looking at the buildings. And then he drew this collage of the detail was 100% to the flower in the window in the 15th floor of the office block detail. It was freaking incredible. So I'm careful before I use phrases like this. Something like it, is your wrongness your strongness? There we go. Is it a blessing?
Oh, lovely, love that.
You can have that one.
So in a way it is, and I think what is really challenging at the moment in society is the Rain Man stereotype. The idea of what autism looks like. It's only boys, it's only men, and ADHD as well to a slightly lesser degree is the naughty boy in the classroom. It's the person that can't sit still, the person that interrupts all the time.
Yeah, I mean, in the light of what we know now, that's pretty lazy thinking, isn't it?
It is, but it's still a generally widely held perception. And for me, I was quite ashamed to say that when I got my diagnosis, I was shocked because even as an educator who'd been working with children, all different kinds of children for a very long time, I still had the stereotyped autism as a thing that impacts boys. I've never met an autistic girl before. Probably definitely had met an autistic girl before. I hadn't had any training on it. Had no information. My girlfriend will
tell you about this because she says that it's the boys that get preferential treatment because of what you said. They think they put it in the boxes. Boys are that, girls are that. Therefore, girls can't be that. Therefore, she won't get any treatment for that because girls don't get it. And that is a challenge that she's faced all her life. So actually, because of the lovely woman I'm dating at the moment, I know all about this.
Do you know what, it's so interesting, and as Karen's put in the comments, you mask to fit in. You do, and I think as women particularly, we're kind of socialized in a particular way. We're socialized to be helpful and to keep our own needs small and don't be aggressive and be a good girl. Exactly. And so you try quite hard to mask any of the difficulties. And in terms of the medical model and how people are diagnosed, it's based on people's deficits. It's based on the things that are wrong with you versus what a neurotypical person can do and live with, if you like. So I'm part of a movement of people out there that are trying to change the perception of what autism and ADHD looks like, particularly in women and girls. And actually, it's not all bad. And that when we are in environments where we are accommodated with like sensory needs and things, actually, like you say, there can be real strengths that come from it as well. So yeah, it's a fascinating world to be in right now.
It really is. When I meet the comedians that are autistic, what I find is they're lovely people. It's just, I think, okay, make allowances. They don't have the same social skills. They joke about it. They're comedians. They say, they make jokes that I can't make eye contact, and all that sort of thing. They joke about it as comedians want to do. And it's just, for me, at least I think I'm neurotypical. I could be wrong. I don't know. I think we've all got a touch of ADHD. It's just make allowances. Don't make the mistake of thinking everyone thinks and feels the same as you. Yeah. Because we don't.
Absolutely. And I think that is one thing to consider as well in terms of how people present is so individual. Neurodivergent brains are as diverse as neurotypical brains. We all have things and skills that we're good at and things that we have challenges with. And I quite often actually had the thought before I knew I was neurodivergent, I wonder what it's like to have an autistic brain. How ironic, given I do have one. But it's the idea that, although somebody may come to you and say, oh, I've got autism or I've got ADHD, they are going to be completely different from another person that would come and say, I've got autism and ADHD, just based on their skills profiles, spiky profiles. They might be brilliant at social communication, but absolutely terrible at keeping their house organized, or, all kinds of different things. So absolutely never judge a book by its cover. Definitely.
Thank goodness the conversation is finally expanding, because putting people in boxes, particularly in the education system, putting people in boxes, you can't do this, can't do that. You know, that group of people are that group of people are that. You can't put people in boxes. We're evolving, changing, unique, with different experiences, different wounds, different hopes, different dreams, different conditions. It's just different. You can't. So I just thank goodness the conversation is expanding around this, and there are people like yourself that understand the nuances of it. So if someone comes to you, how do you help people? What exactly is it that you do?
So I am a self-discovery and confidence coach for autistic ADHD women that have found a diagnosis late in life. It can turn your whole world upside down when you find out that you have got autism and ADHD later in life. You will go to the doctor and say, I've got these things, I've had a diagnosis, and they will generally say, well, you're married, you've got a job, you've made it this far in life. What do you want me to do about it? Things can't be that bad.
Oh, come on, mate.
And
really?
Genuinely did happen to me, absolutely 100%. So there is
not
very
much of a
little
bedside manner with that doctor then.
No, I know. But there's so little support out there for people that have had this diagnosis, and then they go, oh my God, what do I do now? Because you will go through your life and reevaluate every interaction and experience that you've had, and we'll have lots of light bulb moments and lots of things will make sense. But there's the kind of, well, who am I now then? Now that I've got this information, who is?
What is the was it a relief? Was it? Sorry to jump in. Was it a relief to get a diagnosis?
It was a relief, because it gave answers to lots of things, and lots of things.
Because I had OCD and I thought I was going mad, and there was something really wrong with me. And then when I learned it was just a condition suffered by millions for thousands of years, I was like, oh, I'm not the only one there. So there's the first part. Yeah, but in a good way. Nobody wants to be special in that way. You know, I've got the one and only mental illness in the world that nobody understands. You know, you really don't want to be a special case at all. I want to be boring and mainstream like everyone else. But then once the diagnosis, relief is good, but then building on, I'll just let you go back to what you were saying, building on reconstructing the life. Yeah. Absolutely,
because you kind of question, well, who am I then? Am I just, what part of me is the mask? What part of me is the autism? What part of me is the ADHD? You know, who am I underneath all this information? And that's quite a journey to go on and to do by yourself. So I have created resources. I am a coach. I'm in the process of finishing writing a book, which is going to come out in October, to support precisely those people who are late diagnosed, just kind of figure it out in the first sort of year to 18 months post-diagnosis.
Because if you've been swept off your feet, had the wool pulled from under you, it could be devastating.
Absolutely.
If you're asking questions like, well, who am I now? Who am I without this?
Yeah.
You know, when you release the book in October, get in touch about a week before, and we'll come back on before the launch. We'll have you back.
Oh, amazing! That would be fantastic. So I'd love to.
Yeah, we'll do like an unofficial little launch for you, if you like.
That would be brilliant. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Just get in touch. But what a valuable resource. And how did you do it when you realised you were facing it alone? What was your healing process
so it was leaning on others, there's a lovely charity in Reading called Aught Angel, and they do quite a lot of support. They do an Exploring Being Autistic course in person, which I went on, and that was really helpful. And you know, finding other people's stories, other people that had been there that were 2 or 3 years further down the line than I was, and seeing what sort of things had supported them. And just, you know what, self-acceptance and grace, just saying to myself, I am who I am, and that's okay, is essentially the underlying message all of it.
And that you are enough.
Exactly that. Yeah, I mean, that is a message that can serve every human being, but it's really important for those of us that are trying to figure out who we are now.
I came up with this one. Oh goodness, I'm so sorry. Just heckled by Avicii there. Sorry about that. Self-care is not selfish. It is in fact imperative. I came up with that. Your thoughts on that?
It's 100%. That is essentially the tagline. All of my messaging, to all the work that I do, to the courses that I run, to the one-to-one coaching that I give, and essentially the message that runs through the entire book is that once you can accept yourself and not be seeking that external validation and not be worrying about what other people think about you or how you present or anything like that, life gets immeasurably better. It really does.
Because in the nicest way, you don't give a shit.
Yeah, well, quite. Yeah, absolutely that. And it's very liberating. It's very liberating.
No, it's wonderful. I love the concept of the 20-40-60 rule. You've probably come across this. At 20, you care what everyone thinks about you. At 40, you don't give a damn what anyone thinks about you. At 60, you realise that they weren't thinking about you in the first place because they were too busy thinking about themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm trying to instill that into my young daughters now, that actually no one cares what you look like or what you're wearing and what you're doing, because they're all busy worrying about what they look like, what they're wearing, what they're doing.
A great lesson to learn. How old are they?
They are 12 and 9, so I've still got a little bit of time to mould their minds.
What a wonderful lesson to learn so young, because it's all about that age. You really care what everyone thinks. If
you really
somebody
do.
in your friends group doesn't like you, from all the teenagers I know, that would affect them deeply.
Yeah, very much.
Very much, as I would have been at that age. Hugely. Wow. So self-confidence, self-acceptance. And how long is the process? How long would people work with you typically?
Well, I will say it's a lifelong process. I've not stopped, and I don't think I ever will. But typically, sort of 8 to 12 weeks is a good starting point to get people to really start to reframe what's happening for them and pick particular areas of their life that they want to have a look at, whether that's relationship, confidence, or sort of working through burnout. That's normally a good start. And I have got in the works for later in the year, I'm going to have an ongoing membership that people can come and join, so they can kind of pop in and out and get support at any time that they need it with any topic that affects them around this, and just have a community, because that has been the most important thing for me, was finding other people like me and going, oh, actually, I'm not the only one. That is really lovely.
And to think, because as I've said so many times on this show, when we talk about mental health and well-being, which we do quite a lot, that is if there's any kind of mental condition, you think you're the only one.
Yeah.
It's almost a symptom of it. And particularly in the age of Facebook and Insta, you can now tag onto that, and everyone in the world, everyone is having a wonderful life, apart from me.
Yeah.
And that can seem like, and it could not be further from the truth. But when you really, get behind people's, as Karen so beautifully said, people's masks, and see what's really going on, it's such a relief, first of all, and I suppose if other people have been through it, it really helps you to accept yourself as well. Yeah, very, very deeply, I would have thought.
Yeah, you get to the point where you're like, oh, I could be like that. Oh, look how they've kind of come to accept themselves, and look how great their life is, not from the sort of like shiny Instagram perspective, but they are now managing really well. Despite having this information and despite living with these things. So it really is all about that sense of community.
Which is a skill set more than a good Insta profile would give you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. How long did it take you to write the book?
I've been writing it since January, so I've done it in about 5 months.
Well done.
I know. In fits and bursts, I've really channeled the hyper focus in terms of sitting down and getting bits and pieces done. But it's at the stage now where I'm going to be sending it back to the publisher. They're going to be proofreading, it's going to do a bit of back and forth, and it is due out in October. It's just tagging into the end of ADHD Awareness Month in October, and we're due out on the 28th. So I'm looking forward to that. I will not believe it until it's in my hands, and even then I'll still be a bit like, did I really do this?
Come on. No, you did. You got to take all the credit for it. I'll boast for you if you're too shy to boast for yourself.
Thank you very much.
I think that's a typically British thing, though, isn't it? I mustn't take too much credit myself, Well, do you know what? It's been absolutely lovely talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anything else you'd like to share with us? We've got a couple of minutes.
Essentially, if anybody wants to come and find me, I'm on the website there that is available. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook, but I actually tend to hang out more on TikTok. There's a really active sort of autistic ADHD community over there. And I also have a podcast, if I can do a little shout out for my podcast. I do a monthly podcast called Autism, ADHD and Us 3. And it's essentially all things to do with parenting as a neurodivergent parent and parenting neurodivergent children.
Because it affects the circles of people around us, of course it does, and carers need care too, of course.
Absolutely, and it does tend to run genetically. So most people are finding out that they are autistic ADHD because their children have found out first, and then it goes back to the parents. So that's one reason why lots of the older of us are finding out because we find out through our children. So it really is that kind of the family dynamic can be very different in a neurodivergent household.
Yeah, and improve the dynamic vastly when it's better understood, I'm sure.
Yes, absolutely.
If there was someone watching this and they think, oh God, she's talking about me, and they're a bit down about it, maybe they've just had the diagnosis, maybe the rug's been pulled from under them and they're thinking, what the F do I do now? Even who am I now? What would you say to them?
You're still the same person you have always been. It's just that you have more information now to understand yourself in ways that you've never had the chance to do beforehand. Having that language, we talked a little bit briefly about labels earlier on. I believe in having the label because it gives you the language to describe your experience and ultimately to find ways to live your life which are comfortable for you.
And of course, everyone does their best with the knowledge and information they have at the time. A lot of this, a lot of the advances in psychology, I mean, 30 years ago didn't even exist. Some of the therapies that exist now, we are living in that way in very exciting, fast evolving times with new conversations, new understandings. We are evolving. Our awareness is opening right up, which is a wonderful thing. But the fact was, back in the 80s, we didn't have that.
No.
Not really. You were just labeled like there's something wrong with you and sent to the lowest set in the school. You know what I mean?
Lazy, disruptive, emotional, overwhelming, dramatic. All of those things are actually.
My mum used to have her hands. My mum was ambidextrous, and she would write with her left hand sometimes. And so her teacher would sometimes wrap her on the left hand with a ruler and say, "Use your right hand." I mean, come on.
I know. It's wild how things have gone for. And you do get a lot of people, there was none of this in my day, but there was so and so down the road, and he really loved his trains, and he had a great stamp collection. Didn't really like talking to people though. And it's like, but you've labelled them in all these different ways. Like they did exist, they just didn't have the language to discuss.
Yeah, exactly. They've existed probably since time immemorial. But now we have the language, and then we can hopefully remove some of the labels, and in doing so, all understand the world and our place in it, and importantly, as importantly, ourselves even better. Yeah. What a wonderful conversation. It's been lovely to meet you.
Thank you.
What I'm going to do, if you'd like, I can send you the footage of this if you'd like to use it for any.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Any marketing purposes. I had another guest on before, as you know, so I'll edit them out and I'll send her bit and I'll send you your bit. And feel free to and please keep in touch, particularly around October when your book comes out. Hit me up on the socials, and we'll get you back on for a mini book launch. How's that?
That would be amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. I've really enjoyed having this conversation. It's lovely to have conversations with people like this. It really is.
Yeah, Jenny Lucas, thank you so much for being on. And the website again, audistically.me.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to stand there and say that 10 times to get it into my thick head. Audistically.me. Audistically.
So, autism, ADHD, istically me, essentially is what it stands for.
ADHD. Yeah, I see that. Yeah. All right. Jenny, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. All the very best. Bye-bye. What a show. That was two really interesting guests, and we've got some more interesting ones coming up for you very, very soon. Right. I'm going to bust out of here. We've got one more little comment to do. There we go. Karen. Yeah, thank you for your comments, Karen. It's so lovely when you meet other people like you, isn't it? I'm sure the book will be great, and we will get it back on for that book launch, as I promised. OCD and PTSD. Have you heard of havening, Karen? If you buy Paul McKenna's latest book, he's written about this treatment in many books. It's a psychosensory treatment, but it's an incredible breakthrough, and it can. How can I put this? The sciencey way of putting it is depotentiating the amygdala. Yeah, right. What the hell does he mean by that? The amygdala is the emotional center, midbrain, and when that fires up, our front brain, our logical part, shuts down. That's why we don't make good decisions when we're in a negative emotional state. I know when I've been in a negative emotional state, I've made decisions that I think, what the hell was I doing? And it's simply because the front part of my brain wasn't there. But it's how we code these experiences, and havening can calm the emotional center down. And without going too deeply into the science of it, what it will do is whatever memory is giving you that PTSD response, For example, a soldier on the battlefield, a car might backfire. It might be a firework on firework night. They hear bang, and all the emotions come up as fresh as they were when it first happened. It changes that inside the brain and body. So the emotional experience wouldn't be any more painful than, oh, shall I have chicken pie for dinner or should I have beans? You know what I mean? And that is called depotentiating, essentially calming down the amygdala. His latest book's called Power Manifesting, but he's written about it in his other books as well. So I really would recommend looking that up. Havening, Haven, like safe haven. That's what it's based on, havening. Okay. So thanks for your comments, Carol. I hope we've all benefited from listening to the show. Russ and the gang are going to be back on Friday. Russ and the king of the cravats, Mr. Phil Dave, and Jonathan Bads, theatre critic, and Chantal Ricard, TV queen. So much for you. Only on the Midday Show. That's Friday. I'll see you Monday with Russ, and I'll see you next Wednesday with a guest that's been on before, and it's great to have her back on, Lucy Cavendish, who has she's an author, she's a therapist, she's written a book called How to Have Extraordinary Relationships, and I happen to edit her podcast, the How to Have Extraordinary Relationships podcast, where season 3 is launching in just a couple of weeks, and I'm going to clip that audio and send it to her as well. All right, where season 3 is launching in a couple of weeks. I just did that so I can make a clever edit. There you go, editing live. You're spoiled. You're also spoiled. Anyway, lots of love. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. And Russ and the gang, see you Friday. And I'll see you next Monday. Take care. Bye-bye.